It was Chris's GLR show that first brought him to the attention of a young radio producer, Armando Iannucci.
It's interesting, Chris and I had slightly similar starts in radio, in that he started doing Radio Cambridge and Radio Bristol and mucking about in local radio and being left alone to just wander around the building and use the bits and pieces of equipment that he had. And I was slightly more formally allowed that in Radio Scotland. So I was allowed to do comedy, make comedy and use the different resources there. And because of that, you come into it not having gone through the traditional route of writing for a comedy department. You know, I was working with people who did the sports and the news, and Chris was working with people who did, you know, the afternoon show and local radio.
The characters Chris encountered in local radio news inspired many of his personas in On the Hour, The Day to Day and Brass Eye, including the roving reporter Ted Moore. Paul Garner met Chris in his early days of Radio Cambridgeshire and went on to work with him on Radio 1 and Brass Eye.
The character of Ted Moore was very heavily based on a news reporter from BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, and you could hear him practicing before it came up to the hour for him to read the news. And it was around Christmas time, and he'd come in with this headline for the first news item, and we heard him practicing this. It was something like, "Police are out in force today as the county's roads serve up their traditional pre-Christmas cocktail of carnage." And we remember hearing like the news producer going, "Yeah, that's perhaps a little bit kind of, you know, a little bit poetic, a little bit sort of hard-edged. Maybe we could just sort of tone it down a little bit." And so when it went live a minute or so later at On the Hour for the news, he read it slightly differently, but something like this: "The roads have served up their traditional pre-Christmas menu of mayhem." Which, you know, I think's probably slightly worse.
All of this was rich pickings for Chris, and it was the brash local radio style, in-your-face news that inspired a lot of what On the Hour was all about, as Armando Iannucci explains.
When I came to London, he says, something like Dick Whittington, an audio version of Dick Whittington. When I came to London with my lucky cat and a bag of cassettes in a napkin attached to a stick over my shoulder, I heard Chris on GLR, but I also heard on Capital Radio The Way It Is, which was a 7 p.m. news programme, a drive time news programme that did this very hard. Everything was very close up to the mic and very compressed, and music pounding behind everything else. And of course, Chris was aware of all that. And that really was our cue for what On the Hour was. It was almost like it was projecting a world of Radio 4 in the future, as it were, but happening now. It's like some new controller taking over Radio 4 and had just wanted to shake it up a bit. And that's how we thought On the Hour should sound. I mean, the great thing about working with Chris and doing On the Hour was we would sit down and we'd have, you know, a meeting over a coffee or whatever, and come up with these ideas. And then actually we both knew we could just go off and make it. And I actually came and watched him once doing it. And it was, you know, middle of the night in Danny Baker's old studio or something, as he was making his spoof jingles and doing a piece about an earthquake or something. And, you know, you could just tell there was a lot of love and effort that had gone into it, you know, actually doing it again and again and again to get it absolutely right, but also to get it as funny as it can be.
Writer and performer Peter Bainham went on to work with Chris on The Day to Day, Brass Eye and Radio 1, and remembers hearing On the Hour for the first time.
It was a weird time for comedy. This was more on TV. But there was a lot of, like, I suppose, heavy-handed alternative comedy was dominating the scene. And I remember listening to this show and just hearing Dismantled Pope Found Hovering Along Road and just going, what? Like a lot of people, I'm sure, did. And Chris in that voice, you know, that news voice, that On the Hour voice, the Chris Morris, and the content being just bonkers in a way that, you know, I don't think it existed really since Python, I don't think. And it was that super serious thing that he's done so much, but with the content being absolute gibberish, but very amazingly constructed gibberish. It just struck me that there was a mind there that was thinking very differently to anyone else, and it wasn't... I've always been slightly disappointed when I've seen TV sketches where there's something quite interesting and weird about the content, and then it's explained by a punchline. And there was no explanation for this. And I thought, oh, God, I wish I was involved in this, and this is the future. Yeah.
Chris did think very differently to everyone else, which is illustrated in his total commitment to the pranks and spoofs that Armando Iannucci remembers so well.
If I'm ever in my broadcasting days trying to do a prank, I can't sustain it because I just think it's either terrifying or too silly. I start laughing. Whereas he has this ability to just keep going. And there were some things we did for On the Hour that we never used. I didn't know he was doing this, but he played me a tape of him going round Sellafield, going into a nuclear power station as some reporter, and having them all describe what's going on, and then pulling out a gun. But it was a cap gun, and anyway, it never came to anything because actually there was nothing there, and there was nothing there to make it work in a 2-minute segment. But I just thought, well, why did you do that? I didn't know you were doing that. So you just went and did it. And the other thing that we did do, but he never went out, was we realised that on the Today programme at the time, they played in reports from, Bristol and various parts of the regions. And Chris did this report about an abattoir in the Bristol area where, after being stunned and presumably killed, some of the cows just got up and started walking around. We then interview a medievalist who says that the site of the abattoir was on an old plague pit burial ground from medieval times, and there were reports then that various people had been given some supposedly miracle cure, and some of that may have leached into the cows. I don't know. But anyway, the idea was, would this get on the Today programme? And Chris sent it in, and I'm told it got within a minute of being played. And somebody in the Today programme, behind in the editorial room of the Today programme, went, hang on a minute, where's this from? And did a few checks and just thought, no. But I'm told it got within a minute of going on air.
In 1994, Chris was given a weekly music show on Radio 1 where he continued his anarchic march.
Could I have United Airways?
Do you need reservations or flight information?
Well, both at some point, but whichever's available.
The reservations number is area code 213.
Pardon me?
Area code 213.
Is this still English?
Yes.
Are most of the planes airborne?
I'm sorry?
Are most of the planes airborne?
Are they airborne?
Yep.
I suppose so.
When the plane is landing, it's actually pointing downwards.
When the plane is landing, I'm sorry? It's pointing down? Is that what you asked?
Yep.
Yes.
Have they eliminated the bouncy floor trouble?
I don't know.
Because last time when the plane landed, and I was thrown forward onto the bouncy floor, and then I flew through the air all the way through to the first-class compartment, and I received some severe trouble from a gentleman there whose elbow I'd knocked into his wife.
Mm-hmm. I really don't have any information on that. You can call the FAA.
FAA?
I'm sorry?
Is this still English?
Yes, it's English.
FAA?
Yes.
Is there an onion limit?
Onion?
Limit. The number of onions I can bring. Is there a limit?
I don't know.
But you do know that the aircraft are airborne?
When they take off, they're airborne.
And when they land, they're on the ground?
And they land on the ground.
They are on the ground once they've landed?
Once they've landed, they'll be on ground.
And when they go up to the terminal, and the little jetty goes out... Yes?
Yes?
Are the planes sniffing at the building?
Are they sniffing the building?
Yes.
Go. When the planes pull up to the jetway doors, are they sniffing the building? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, sniffing.
Are you English speaking?
We both are. What can we help you with, sir?
I'm trying to research a flight for a friend of mine who's a nervous passenger.
Okay, you need to ask
He's my father. He's my father. He's lying down.
What airline is he traveling on?
It's United Airlines, and your colleague has been most helpful.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Okay. When the planes arrive at the terminal building, and the little jetties are put out, and the tubes are stuck onto the side, and people are walking off the plane,
Yes.
are the planes... Are they sniffing the building?
Are they what?
Sniffing the building.
I'm going to hang up now, sir. Please don't call back here.
Hello?
We're just about to be hit by a huge wave of advertising saying do not drink and drive, and every time it comes round there are an amazing number of loopholes and ways round drinking and driving which seem to escape everybody. You know, I mean, it's not a simple case of do not drink and drive.
Well,
I mean,
it's do not drink and drive and get caught drinking and driving, or don't get arrested drinking and driving.
well, or if you do get stopped drinking and driving, make sure that you can deal with it like an adult.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there are various ways, aren't there?
Well, one thing I was thinking, why not have false veins? Little plastic false veins, get them made. You could probably make them from a length of wire or something like that.
Yeah.
Hide them under your arm, next to the main vein. Fill them with, blood.
So you'd have a
Just
little jar
blood that
behind you pumping it through.
Yeah.
Or you could hide your blood.
Yeah. Put it behind your kidneys. And that was that little sack. There's a little
Well,
sack behind your
there's a
kidneys.
vein in the human body called the smuggler vein.
Yeah.
And you can, well, yogics can train the blood to go there.
But you can cheat, can't you?
You can cheat, yes.
can cheat.
You can make the blood go there in a sudden rush. It's a dangerous thing to do, but take your tongue and clamp it in a pair of pliers until it bursts.
Yeah.
And then then you're clean as a whistle. They couldn't get any blood, they couldn't get a drop of blood out of anywhere they tried to take from you. It's all in the smuggler vein.
How about, if you're not... I mean, surely the law must state that if you're not technically in charge of the car, because they do say that you've got to be in charge of a car and drunk.
Yeah, it's drunk in charge of a car.
If you had a car that was fitted with, like, little rubber, very floppy bits of rubber sticking out of the accelerator pedal, the gear stick, everything, and so that when they catch you, you're trying to manipulate the car with this stuff.
And you're not fully in charge of it.
No.
What about if you just put your hands over your ears and go, like that, when he talks?
Get off scot-free.
Declare your car an independent state.
Brilliant.
If you do that, if you declare your car an independent state, the cop has such a rough time trying to prove that you're not an independent state. But by the time it's all gone through, then
So
there's no
9
point in
times
blood
out of 10
testing
he's
you.
going to think, oh, stuff it.
Yeah, exactly.
How about if you can prove you live in your car? Because I mean, if they want to arrest you, they've got to have a warrant. If you're in your own
Dwelling.
residence,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what,
he
you have
can't
little
get in.
milk bottles on the bonnet and stuff?
Yeah, a little bit of turf in the back, garden, landing,
And a roll-out path at the side.
letterbox coming through the door.
Curtains.
In fact, if that happened, you could probably sit there whilst he's standing there, just going like that. You could be there just with a can of beer, just chucking it down.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Of course, if he stops you, right, and you stop your car, say, 50 yards away, he gets out of the car, comes towards you, you leap out of your car, produce a full bottle of whiskey, chug the whole damn thing down.
Yeah.
Then how's he going to know when he breathalyzes you?
What? So he's going to have to... You're going to have to say... You can just turn around and say, I'm sorry, officer.
I was
But
sober.
I was completely sober.
And now
I am now pissed.
Yeah.
Go away.
It'd be great if you could have a car with 4 independent driving consoles.
What, inside the same car?
Each seat. So 2 front seats, the 2 back seats would each have a steering wheel, accelerator and brakes. So that you could have everybody in it, but the copper would never know which person was driving. So if he stopped you, as long as you had one person sober in there, everyone else could be absolutely off their face.
Why not just have a car with 1 driving console, 4 people in it, and the sober person driving, Chris?
Well, there'd be no point there, because, because then it wouldn't mean that a piss person could drive.
Where's Mop, mop.